I was 13 years
Okay.
old, yeah, when my mom was diagnosed. And to be perfectly honest with you, of course, what is any of that supposed to even mean,
Yeah.
at that particular age? The way my mom approached me with it was just more so like, hey, I went to the doctor. Um, they told me I have what's called cancer, but we are going to get through this. So she was very, very soft with me about the situation, even though it was going to be a tough battle. She didn't want to scare me. But it wasn't until the last 6 months of her life where there was never any giving up on her. There
Mm-hmm.
was never giving up on her because she was not giving up on herself. But I could slowly tell that she was getting tired, you
Yeah.
know, fighting and fighting and fighting for as long as she was. I could actually see and hear when she would get tired.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think for me, even if we didn't necessarily speak on it, I was slowly starting to just come to terms with myself like, okay, you know, we're going to continue to get through this, but you also have to allow her to get tired, When I first felt my lump, because I found my own lump through, I would say self exam, but really my arm just kind of brushed against the left side of my breast and I felt it. Um, at that particular moment, I knew. Like it was without a doubt. Of course, I would tell myself like, okay, maybe it's just a mosquito bite, or maybe I just felt the wrong way, or something like that. But to be perfectly honest with you, and I tell everyone that now, I couldn't say it back then to my family and friends, like, oh, I know I have breast cancer. But as soon as I felt it, I knew. I
Mm-hmm.
knew.
So I have the beautiful Miss Jonell with me today. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Listen, I have been so inspired by you, by your resilience, by just your strength from
Thank
everything that you've gone through. So, as we get started, tell us a little bit about you, about your story.
Absolutely. So my name is Jonell
Mm-hmm.
Deshotel. I am born and raised New Orleans, Louisiana.
Mm-hmm.
I am a recent breast cancer survivor.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I just rolled into my third year of remission.
Mm-hmm.
I was diagnosed back at the end of our COVID pandemic, or midway in December of 2020, diagnosed with triple negative invasive ductal carcinoma. Back during that time, I had to undergo 16 rounds of chemotherapy, 17 rounds of immunotherapy, as well as having a double mastectomy, or bilateral mastectomy rather. So I've been through some things. However, I always tell people that my breast cancer journey didn't start a few years ago. It
Okay.
actually started back in 2000, when my mom was first diagnosed with breast cancer. Her fight was pretty similar in the beginning, having to undergo surgery, and she had chemo and radiation. Went into remission for a while, but she actually had a recurrence, with inflammatory breast cancer.
Okay.
And with that, it was actually noted as the most aggressive form back during that time. So, with that being said, she was actually able to carry that out for several years, even though ultimately I did end up losing her to that particular battle, in 2014. So, I'm on my 10-year anniversary now of losing my mom. However, I am now in my going into third year of remission. So it's been, a ride. It has definitely
Yeah.
been a crazy ride here in this breast cancer world, but I am thriving now. I spend a lot of my time doing patient advocacy work, helping women who are going through the battle and who are going through the disease, making sure that no one fights it alone. So that's what I enjoy doing. I'm a full time mom. So yeah, that's life. Little old me. I'm just a homebody, to be perfectly honest with you. But
Yeah.
outside of that, I'm very passionate and very just strong in advocacy and making sure that women are getting through this battle.
I love that. So with your mom,
Mm-hmm.
um, Around what age were you when you found out about your mom?
So I was 13 years
Okay.
old, yeah, when my mom was diagnosed. And to be perfectly honest with you, of course, what is any of that supposed to even mean,
Yeah.
at that particular age? The way my mom approached me with it was just more so like, hey, I went to the doctor. Um, they told me I have what's called cancer, but we are going to get through this. So she was very, very soft with me about the situation, even though it was going to be a tough battle. She didn't want to scare me
Yeah.
in the beginning. And so, sure enough, I feel like we went into battle together. She made sure to take me along with her through the process. So, even as a teenager, I was going to chemotherapy treatments with my mom. I was going to radiation treatments with my mom, just because she wanted me to be a part of that journey with her.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that I appreciated, because even in my own journey, I was able to think back to the knowledge that I had gained during that time and my own experiences to be able to put that into my now journey with this particular disease.
Okay. So when your mom had her recurrence,
Mm-hmm.
um, about how long had it been since she had been in remission?
I would probably give it a few years. She was actually re-diagnosed about a week before Hurricane Katrina. Actually, it wasn't even a full week. It was just a few days before Hurricane Katrina hit.
Okay.
And believe it or not, she could not leave the city because she had just received this diagnosis and everything was already locked up to where she couldn't even leave the city at that point. So she did have to stay here, of course, throughout the storm just to make sure that she was able to get through everything. But it all happened around that time.
So Hurricane Katrina happened 2005.
Mm-hmm.
This is New Orleans,
Mm-hmm.
completely underwater.
Mm-hmm.
Your mom has recently had this diagnosis. I'm assuming you stayed with her during the storm.
That is that's a very good note to make. I was actually in Orlando, Florida. I was doing an internship with Walt Disney World during the time that Hurricane Katrina was hitting, as well as my mom receiving her new diagnosis. So
So did she tell you?
she did. She
Okay.
did. Yeah, she called me because of course I was 13 at first, but now at this time I'm like 18,
Mhm.
So understanding it a lot more, she did let me know the severity of this particular type of breast cancer. Again, this one was inflammatory breast cancer. So
Yeah.
it's actually a cancer by sight where you can see it, on
Mhm.
the surface as like it shows as like a rash, just like a big red marking, and depending on how small or large it is basically how much of the area it's covering.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you're at this internship
Mm-hmm.
in Walt Disney World, supposed to be the happiest place on earth. You have now received these news, and then Katrina happens,
Yeah.
and you know she has to stay there.
Mm-hmm.
So what's going through your mind?
Losing my mind.
Yeah.
Losing my mind, absolutely. The most magical place on earth was absolutely miserable for me. Like I just but I got through it. I was able to stay in touch with my family.
Okay.
They did eventually get airlifted from New Orleans once the flood water started. And of course, just like everyone else, some were going to Texas, some were going to Georgia. So they were able to find safety. As far as my mom is concerned, yes, her hospital that she was going to, the ones that had all of her medical records, where all of her doctors were, it was completely underwater. So they lost everything. And she actually not relocated, but she ended up going to Boston, Massachusetts.
Mhm.
I have a cousin that is an OBGYN out there, and she basically told my mom that she had some referrals for her at some of the area hospitals, and basically come stay out here with us for a little bit, and
Yeah.
we'll, get you started with treatment and whatnot. So that is how that particular journey ended up moving on with my mom. Just she stayed in Boston for quite some time,
Mhm.
um, gained just a complete love for the city and the culture, and the medical district out there. They treated her so well and so kindly, and She kind of made it a second home for herself, and they did a lot for her, and I'm very appreciative for all of her Boston family for all that they did.
Absolutely. So you finished up your internship.
I did. I
Did
did.
you go to Boston with her? Did you end up going back to the New Orleans area?
Yeah, so I actually I did make a few visits, out there to the Boston area with her back and forth. Eventually, once the city kind of cleared up, she ended up going back home. Our home exactly didn't really get it wasn't devastated too much.
Mm-hmm.
However, majority of our family was. So our home kind of became like the lodging space for everyone,
Yeah.
who was coming back in town to get their own homes together. So um, she did end up going back home for a while, and then she would travel back and forth to Boston to undergo treatment. But with the particular type of cancer that she actually had to start several different trial studies. So
Yeah.
Boston had a few. There were a few here in New Orleans. She had to go to MD Anderson in Houston.
Mm-hmm.
She was at Duke University in Raleigh, Durham. So she really just kind of had her toe dipped everywhere. She was a fighter, and 100% wherever the medication is, wherever the trial study is, let me know, and that's where I'm going.
So her cancer came out of remission 2005, and you said you had her until about 2014.
Correct.
So that's 9 long years.
It is.
Nine
It
long
is.
years.
Yeah.
Was there ever a point where, because you're 18 at that point, so now you're about 26, 27-ish, where you start to get that realization like that she may not go back into remission this time?
Yeah. The last 6 months.
Okay.
So, needless to say, she carried out which was originally supposed to be like 18 months. So
Yeah.
when we look at, the uh, life expectancy of someone that is diagnosed with inflammatory breast cancer, at that time they're like about 18 months. So that is what we were expecting in the beginning. And she literally took that 18 months and turned it into 9 full years of life.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until the last 6 months of her life where there was never any giving up on her. There was never giving up on her because she was not giving up on herself. But I could slowly tell that she was getting tired, fighting and fighting and fighting for as long as she was. I could actually see and hear when she would get tired. And so I think for me, even if we didn't necessarily speak on it, I was slowly starting to just come to terms with myself like, okay, we're going to continue to get through this, but you also have to allow her to get tired, you have to allow her to get tired because she was fighting so hard for the family. She was fighting so hard for me. I'm her only daughter. My daughter at the time, who was like 4 going on 5, that was her only granddaughter. So she was fighting so hard for us, but I wanted to make sure that she was heard and seen in the event that she did get tired. I didn't want her to feel like I need to stay for them, because who wants to live like that? Who wants to actually sit there and be like, I have to fight, 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 but I don't even, there's not much more that I can do. So I wanted to make sure that I just allowed that calmness for her, that grace for her to know that whichever route you need to take, it's okay. We're gonna get through this either way. So
was that ever like an explicit conversation that you had with her?
Never really a conversation that we had. I think it was more of like an unspoken language, if you will, where we just kind of knew there was so much that she had wanted to accomplish in life that we did, we took the vacation, and I had a daughter, so she was able to be a grandmother for 5 full years, where it's like she did the things that we always dreamed about. She did the
Yeah.
things that we talked about. So with that, we didn't even need to have that verbal conversation of it's okay. I think it's just something that we both just knew.
I love that. So at what point did you all start, like, I guess it sounds like you started checking things off of her bucket list.
Mm-hmm.
At what point was that like okay, we're going to not just survive, but we're going to start living?
Yeah. This, believe it or not, I mean, she was okay. She was still going through treatment. But back in like 2012, I received an award at my job. And it was like this Employee of the Year award. And the gift was a trip to the Bahamas, right? And it was several people within the company that had received different levels of this award. However, we were all going to the Bahamas, and it was, you can take one person with you. So
Yeah.
everyone's like, oh, I'm taking my boyfriend, I'm taking my husband. I'm like, I'm taking my mama. And they're
Yeah.
like, what? And I'm like, I'm taking my mom.
Yeah.
And of course, at that time, it's like, girl, why you taking your mama to the Bahamas? But I'm like, because I don't know, you never know. And of course, she still had a good 2 or 3 years after that particular trip. But I just wanted to ensure that basically any experience or opportunity that I had, I wanted her to be the one to experience it with me.
Yeah.
My daughter was young. She was 4 or 5. So we have more than enough time to have those experiences. But with my mom, I wanted to make sure that we were able to lock in every single thing. And we did.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. So you talked about a little bit about how she prepared you for your journey, right? Was that something that you always feared and like it happened, or did it completely catch you by surprise?
I was very naive to the whole me getting breast cancer thing.
Okay.
And the reason why is because I feel like my mom just fought for all of us. Like I felt
Yeah.
like she fought for me, all the family members, all her friends, neighbors. She did it all.
Yeah.
Like I would never get that. And so I had the knowledge, listening to the way that she would talk to her doctors, watching how her doctors would receive her and love on her, and different things that she would talk about, whether it be with chemo or surgery. I was a sponge, still a sponge. Like I'm bringing in all this information, but there was never a time where I thought, oh, I will need to use it for myself.
Yeah.
Never. Leading up to the point of my mom's passing, and even after my mom's passing, my thoughts or dreams of advocacy were all based around her. It was based on being a caregiver. It was based on, how to help those and support those that are going through the battle.
Yeah.
It never, ever, ever crossed my mind that I would be the one that would be using it. Like it never. Now, when I first felt my lump, because I found my own lump through, I would say self-exam, but really my arm just kind of brushed against the left side of my breast and I felt it. At that particular moment, I knew. Like it was without a doubt. Of course, I would tell myself like, okay, maybe it's just a mosquito bite, or maybe I just felt the wrong way or something like that. But to be perfectly honest with you, and I tell everyone that now, I couldn't say it back then to my family and friends like, oh, I know I have breast cancer. But as soon as I felt it, I knew. I knew.
So you did this self-examination. Was that something that like you regularly did just in general, and you just happened to feel it that one time?
So self-exams, and one thing that I tell everyone is just how important it is, no matter what age you are.
Yeah.
Once you start to grow breast, even as a child or a teenager, it is so important to start those self-exams. It was, of course, something that my mom pushed on me. I had to actually start receiving mammograms at the age of 26 because, they always say that you have to start 10 years prior to like your mom or family member, just to make sure. So I started receiving mammograms at 26, but I was still doing the monthly type self exams on a monthly basis, and it never has to be like, oh, I need to set aside this amount of time to do a self exam. You can be in the shower
Yeah.
and, just making sure that there is nothing that's feeling abnormal, there's nothing that's feeling weird or out of shape. And in this particular instance, it was not a self exam that I did. It was just my arm. Like my arm just like brushed past in the shower, and I'm like, wait, that didn't feel right. And I'm like lifting my arm, and I'm like, what is that? And it, before even asking what it is, I was like, I know what it is. I know what it is. And yeah, and that's really just kind of where everything just started filing into place.
Yeah. Do you think that you caught it pretty early because you were doing like regular exams?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. If this was something that I did not have knowledge on, if this was a topic that I didn't know much about, I don't know if you and I would be sitting here having this conversation today.
Yeah.
Just because I did know those things, and being prepared for it, knowing how to act on it. We have so many women and men, cancer does not discriminate, the breast cancer does not discriminate. But we have so many people that may feel something or see something and they won't do anything about it.
Yeah.
And that is the part that scares me, but it also increases my passion for what it is that I do from the advocacy side, knowing that it is okay to go get checked out.
Yeah.
If something does not look right, if something does not feel right, if something is in pain that has not been in pain before, go get checked. This is something, it's breast cancer particularly, they are killing so many women at just, it's alarming rates that they are killing women. And a lot of times it's from women that just don't know.
Yeah.
They may have felt something. It's like, oh, I'll go get it checked later. Oh, I'll go get it checked at another time. We hear so often now, get a mammogram at the age of 40. When you turn 40, get a mammogram. When you turn 40, get a mammogram. It's our women that are under the age of 40 that's not making it to that point.
Yeah.
So that's the importance of letting people know that this can happen to any of us, at any age. My mom, she was originally diagnosed at the age of 36. I was originally diagnosed at the age of 34. So it's like, if this was just a regular life, I would not have gotten to the age of 40 to get that mammogram. So, those are the things that are just really important, where it's like, don't think that it can't happen to you, because it can. We don't want it to happen to you, but we always have to be aware. So that word awareness is always just so important.
Yeah. And now you have your daughters, actually.
Daughters, yes.
Yeah. And your mother had it. You've had it. Is it a fear as a parent that you now have for your daughters?
It's always going to be a fear, not just the fear of my daughters or a family member getting it. I have fears of recurrence for myself, never knowing if it's going to come back. However, the same way that I was raised to just be aware, if you see something, feel something, say something, that is how I'm raising my daughters. I now have a 15-year-old, I have a teenager, who in turn, will have to start getting mammograms at 24, because I was first diagnosed at 34. So she's going to have to start that route early. And it's not to scare her, but it's really just to make sure that we stay on top of things, making sure she knows, like, hey, if something doesn't feel right, if something's in pain, say something. Let's go get it checked out. It could be nothing, but we always want to make sure that we get it checked out. So those are things that we're always talking about, as well as with my mom, bringing me along with me on her journey. I did the same with my daughter. bringing her into the conversation almost as soon as I got diagnosed. I think I waited a week or two just to kind of process a little myself. But I had that talk with her and we just hit the ground running, and I'd much rather her be with me and alongside me, instead of hiding it from her, because then at one point, what happens if she sees me not feeling well? She's not going to know what's wrong with me. I'm fighting cancer, and she's just going to be like, oh my God, why is my mom always tired? Why is she, not doing the things that she used to do? So I made sure to bring her along with me. So that way we were just kind of able to lean on each other. And she really was my backbone completely.
Yeah. I love that. Even from a spiritual perspective, not to change the topic, but I couldn't help but think how many people, like, the enemy fights you with so many different things. And so often we try to shield our kids from those things instead of saying, hey, this is how the enemy tries to fight our lineage. Let me bring you along for this journey so that if he fights you in the same way, you'll already know the strategy.
Absolutely.
I love that.
Absolutely. And that's what it's all about. We learn so much. And I think with my own mom, so I was a few weeks away from turning 28 when my mom passed. And to this day, I think of little things that I wish we would have talked about or something like that. And, it pushes me even further to try to have that open communication with my daughter. Now, I'm not your friend. We still have to keep that, like, I am still mama, you are still daughter. However, making sure that we keep those lines of communication open so that way she knows, that this is something okay to talk about. Seeing or hearing the word breast, at some point it's like we don't even speak of those words unless we're talking about a piece of chicken or something. But, in reality, this is so real now and so relevant now, to where we have to have those conversations with our kids. We have to make sure that they are not afraid to say that word, or making sure that they're not afraid to have that conversation with their own friends. I want my daughter to be able to tell her friends, like, hey, my mom and grandmother had breast cancer, and I want you guys to make sure you start checking yourself. Talk to your own moms and aunts about it, like really just making this a comfortable conversation for all of us.
Absolutely. I think it's so taboo because so many people don't know the ins and outs of their own body.
Yeah.
It's like, don't, and I say this with a grain of salt, but like, especially in the church, it's like you shouldn't be like touching, feeling, doing all of those things because everything surrounding the body is considered sexual.
Correct.
And so what do normal breasts feel like?
Yeah.
Like, I don't even know what it might be a milk duct in there, and that was a new experience for me, even as a mom, like trying to figure out, whoa, is that like a lump or is that a milk duct? Like,
right.
Like, and so I think so many people are perishing because of our lack of knowledge, just that basic, like, how does my body function? How does it operate? Like, what are those cyclical things that I should be looking for?
Yeah. Absolutely. And my particular subtype, along with so many, the triple negative breast cancer. So that's actually a cancer where there's nothing for it to feed off of. So it's like there's no estrogen, no progesterone, no HER2 protein, if you will. There's none of these things for the cancer to eat off of. So it's literally just killing you. Like, it's just growing and killing you. And so there are now different treatment plans that are needed for this particular type of cancer. That's why they actually consider it to be more aggressive, because it's just harder to fight. And so the earlier you catch it, the better your chances are of, actually fighting it, going into complete remission. Whereas a lot of times it's not being caught until the end, or it's not being caught until it's too late. Triple negative breast cancer within itself, it hits women that are under the age of 40.
Yeah.
Women of color, so our Black and brown women that are dying, that we're losing, it's because they may have felt something and just didn't say anything about it, and it ended up being too late. So it's like it does not matter at any age, any age. And I say that like teenagers. I know women that have been in their young 20s being diagnosed with this disease. You know, it doesn't discriminate. It can happen to any of us. And so that is just the importance of just constantly talking about it, speaking on it, knowing about the different subtypes, knowing that triple negative breast cancer will kill, wants to kill Black women. Like, it wants to kill women that are under the age of 40. It's sneaky, it's very, very sneaky, because we're sitting here watching commercials and watching the news saying get a mammogram by 40, but this particular cancer is coming to wipe us out before then.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's so important.
Yeah. So I know that you said that you are scared of having a recurrence. But tell me what it was like, because you had a miracle, like even in the middle of this. Tell me a little bit about that.
About my miracle?
Yes.
Okay. So during the time that I was going through chemotherapy, or actually right before chemotherapy, speaking to fertility, my doctors, they did offer me, being able to freeze my eggs, because chances are, your chances of fertility are going to drop with chemotherapy. And especially with one of the treatments that I was on, being one of the most aggressive forms of chemo, they just pretty much counted me out, like, or you can freeze the eggs or not, and to be honest with you, I just wanted to go straight into chemo. I didn't want to let this cancer continue to brew or grow in me any longer. So I just went ahead and took that route. Now, keep in mind, I'm also 34 years old. I have a daughter who is growing. I'm like, I don't really need any other kids. I'm fine. Fast forward to now, I have a very happy and healthy 5-month-old daughter named Journey, who has graced my world, my family's world, in so many different ways. And I call her my miracle baby. She's not a rainbow baby. She's my miracle baby, because doctors said she would never be here. There were no chances for her. But God thought differently. And so for that, I am so grateful to have her. I always tell people, I feel like my children are here to save my life. With my oldest, with everything that I was going through with my mom, I felt like my daughter was there to save me from maybe any additional grief that I was going through, to keep me busy, to keep me sane, to keep me going. And then now with Journey's arrival, I feel like she is here to just help continue to lead me on the way of survivorship and thriving, and just kind of being that. I'm still a mom, but I'm a teen mom, and that's far different from any other mom, because the teenagers, that's a different episode for another day. But I feel like Journey has truly gotten me to this place to where I can just lean and love and just not worry as much about the world, or not worry as much about the what ifs, or recurrence. Of course, there's always going to be a chance, but I feel like with her, she's giving me that chance to just live life again and be mom, which I love being. So I'm very, very grateful.
Are there ever moments in time where you just kind of get sad, or you like miss your mom, or you wish that she could be here?
Absolutely. Believe it or not, so I do miss my mom. I will always 100% miss her physical presence. I feel that my mom is always with me. I feel like she played a very, very, very big role when it came down to my own breast cancer journey. Just her being with me and help walking me through the process. However, sadness can be in so many different forms. The depression that I experienced not as much during my cancer journey, but more so like after the fact. We hear, okay, you fought cancer, you beat it, yay, you're a survivor. What people don't realize is that once we survive it, we don't know what to do after. Like we,
Yeah.
life does not go back to normal. So
Mm.
we don't know which way to turn. It's like, okay, now what? Now what do we do? And those are things that you really have to learn the hard way, because it's like, okay, um, going back to work, I want to go back to work. I think I can go back to work. But then when I get to work, I'm tired. I'm burned out. I need to take my medication. I don't feel well. I'm in pain, and then all of a sudden the job is looking at you like, what's your problem? What's wrong with you? Why can't you do what you used to do? And it's
Mm.
because I'm not the same person that I was. Like I'm having to relearn. It's like a rebirth. Like I'm having to relearn who I am as a person. That shell is still there. And that looks a little different too.
Yeah.
At this point, I've lost my hair. I'm, trying to figure out how to grow my hair back, and I've had body parts chopped off and switched over and things taken away and added. Like I've had this chemotherapy, this poison that has run all through my body, immunotherapy. It has run through my body. I'm now listed as having chronic fatigue. Like I'm in my 30s. Yeah, all of these different things. I'm immunocompromised. Like all these different things that I'm now having to
Yeah.
relearn and to adjust to, like, with this new life. And so um grieving the old me, you know,
Mm.
I miss her.
Yeah.
She the survivor Jonell, she's strong, but I miss the old Jonell too. Um and those are things that you have to
Yeah.
get through, and it's a lot of times people don't necessarily understand
Mhm.
what it is that you're going through. People are like, girl, you're blessed, you beat this. I did, but it's like I'm a whole new person. I'm like Freaky Friday almost. Like, who
Yeah.
am I? What do I do now? um the anxiety, of, will this come back? I just did all of this stuff. I just fought so hard. Is it going to come back? Like what happens now? The anxiety of, I have a headache. Is the cancer back? My stomach hurts. Is the cancer back? My, my back hurts. Do I have a tumor in my back? Like it's all of these things that I'm now forced to deal with on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Even now to this day, I'm 3 years out, and a headache is like, oh my God, what's wrong with me? And I hate feeling like that, but that's what our minds, it's like they're
Immediately go.
programmed to go
Yeah.
to. So yeah, there is definitely a sadness, and we always say that even through this survivorship portion that we're in, the mental health point is just as critical,
Mhm.
um going to therapy, talking to people, about what it is that we deal with. I found a very safe space in community, with women that have gone through the same thing. Um, After coming out of treatment and surgery and things of that nature, finding women and meeting women that are actually going through the same thing, near and far. We have several different breast cancer organizations for just so many different reasons, where we all come together for basically the same purpose. And it's to uplift ourselves, to
Yeah.
uplift each other, to empower each other. And that has been just like such a very safe and sacred space for me, um, because we are allowed to be ourselves. I meet so many people that have no idea about what we're going through,
Mhm.
the language that we speak. It's like, so actually having that
Yeah.
works itself out.
I think that's crazy because most of the time, like, you see these people going through these things, and the first thought is like, oh, I'm sure they wish their lives were back to normal.
Mhm.
But more often than not, it's going to be a new normal.
Yeah,
Like nothing's ever going to be the same.
absolutely.
They're
Absolutely.
done going to chemotherapy, but they're a completely different person
Yeah.
after they've gone through that. That's, yeah, that
My
could be a sermon all in itself.
my favorite is, "Oh, you're so strong," or "Oh, she's so strong." And in my mind I'm like, "If you only knew." Like,
Yeah.
because it is. I will say that my hardest part of my journey was after I actually finished the the physical fight of it,
Right.
because it's that emotional, that mental, that what's next, what's
Mm-hmm.
now, speaking to the the community, the
Mm-hmm.
women or men that that we meet, that have gone through the same thing, um, dealing with like this survivor's guilt. I was actually just talking to a friend about this not too long ago. Um, we have so many people, right, that have gone through this, and
Mm-hmm.
we share our stories with these people. For me, I've done advocacy with people and just all these different things that are no longer here right now.
Yeah.
And for me, I'm like, wait, we were just together. We were just talking. We were just
Mm-hmm.
doing this. How, And it's
Mm-hmm.
like, it adds the fear of recurrence for myself, but then it's also that guilt of, like, why them? Like, why not me? Like, what,
Yeah.
And so we never like to use the word why, but truly that is what we think a
Mm-hmm.
lot of times. It's like the whys of these situations. And so it does. It plays a large part when it comes down to our mental health, and it's the importance of making sure that we are going to therapy, and we are having these open conversations, because there are so many people that are living in fear and just not saying anything about it. So just a long list of things. But yeah, to get back to your original question, sadness does play a role. It does play a role.
Mm-hmm. I'm learning so much in this conversation, so thank you for
Of
that.
course.
Absolutely. And again, I do want to thank you so much for joining me. Um, as I kind of close out and pray out, my thought process is to pray for the mental health,
Yeah.
um, for those who are going through it and who've also survived it. Because a lot of times, I think even me personally, I've always assumed that, like, oh, they're good now, like they're not going through it. They may not need as many prayers as the
Yeah.
person who's actively in the struggle. And obviously that's just not the case.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to pray,
Okay.
if you will.
Awesome. Of course.
Father, I just thank you so much for every person that is going to watch this who has or is going through some form of cancer, chemotherapy, who are struggling in their health. I pray now in the name of Jesus that health would be their portion. Father, you said that healing is the children's bread. It's the only gift that you promised to give us freely. And so I pray that you would surround them with people of faith who would encourage them, who would strengthen them. And even for those, Father, who you've already healed them, I pray that you would continue not just to heal their physical bodies, but to make them whole, even in their minds. I ask that you would strengthen their minds, their resilience. I speak against any fear, any anxiety now, even over Jonell. I pray, Father, that peace would be her portion, that a supernatural peace and a genuine understanding would go through her in her heart and her mind, that you would guard all of her mental faculties. Help her to not just to trust in you for the physical, Father, but I thank you that you'll allow her to truly rest in you. I pray that you would put a hedge of protection up even over her daughters, over her family members, that you would keep them covered under your blood. And I just thank you for it now. And it's in the mighty name of Jesus Christ that we do pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for
This has
having
been
me.
a beautiful conversation.
It has been. I
Yeah.
appreciate you so much.
Thank you.